Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse and to our first episode in our ongoing series, That's Total Shite. Join Davy, Gallagher, and I as we look at Boston's 2013 album, Life, Love, and Hope. All I can say is, wow, look how the mighty have fallen. But before we start, let's look at some upcoming and current programming on the channel. Ernesto and Ryan will be joining me for Get the Funk, where we discuss our 3 favorite funk tracks. This should be coming up next week, so look for that. Check out the first episode in This Is Power Pop, where the panel looks at the first Raspberries album from 1972. Next month, we look at the Plimsouls. In October, the band Fountains of Wayne. Todd, Armando, Davey, and I will soon look at ABC's legendary album, The Lexicon of Love. This 1982 debut studio album by English pop band ABC set the world on fire back in the day. I'm looking forward to this one. And on the Contrarians, Martin, Marco, Todd, and I look at The Doors. This is what I consider the Contrarians' quote-unquote extreme episode. This was just released, so head over to the Contrarians and check it out. Also on August 12th at 7 p.m. we are having another Friday night chat. Remember, these happen every 2 weeks. We will be going live on YouTube and Facebook. Everyone is welcome. I will send out the link as we get closer. So please like, subscribe, you know the thing. Let's get to That's Total Shite with Davy Gallagher right now. Would help if I could pronounce it correctly. Davy, how's it going?
Very well.
Well, I'm just saying.
I think it's all been said.
Has it?
There's very few shows where the title kind of does everything you need it to, and then you don't need to say anything. And That's Total Shite pretty much sums it up.
It is total shite, yeah, pretty much.
So, yeah. But apart from that, I'm okay.
So, how are you, for crying out loud? What's new? Before we even start, is there anything new on the channel or anything coming up? Before we get rolling into this and bring people down, because, you know, a lot of these hardcore Boston people are just not gonna, not sure how they're gonna handle this.
I don't know. And frankly, I don't care how they handle it.
You
because
do care.
Because
we're doing this show.
We do care. I don't care if they can't handle that we're criticizing this one. Because this is so bad that if you defend this the way you defend, say, if I was criticizing the debut, you've got a real problem with critical faculties. However, everything is perfect apart from that.
But real quick, before we start, what's going on your channel? Is there anything coming up? Let's just get this out of the way while, you know.
Why, sure. So yesterday I uploaded, was it right here? Or the day before, a review of the new Neil Young record, and that's doing pretty well. We're up to about 600 views on that.
I do have a question. I know this goes against the grain. Was that the only release that came out, or were there, you know, like the last batch, they had 3 come out?
Well, again, this is why I think Neil, as much as I adore him, I think he needs to be a bit more, not transparent, because the information's all there. He's not MoFi, but just a bit more obviously using maybe a banner on top of labels and things, because this is part of the performance series, which is completely separate from the bootleg series. So this is an ongoing series, like the what was it? Dreaming Man 92 was part of that, or the Blue Note Cafe was part of that. Archive shows, and then the bootleg series is specifically ones that have already been bootlegged, and he uses the bootlegger's own cover art. So this is a completely separate one.
The reason I asked you that is because the cover art on that looks like a bootleg,
does.
It's like, come on, Neil. I'm not. I love Neil. Don't get me wrong, but anybody who's watching and is into Neil Young, even though I know this is a Boston show, but we go on tangents on this show. Doesn't that look like a bootleg to you?
It does, but it also looks a bit Tonight's the Night, which I really like.
Yeah, it does.
You know, it's got that really harsh black and white, and it does have some yellow for the flower, which I quite like the contrast. And it sums up his career so well, doesn't it? Noise and flowers. That's the 2 kind of aspects of Neil Young, the yin and the yang. But it is a really good record, although as we've been discussing with you two on album covers on Ryan's channel,
Right.
sometimes you think the back would be a better cover. Look at that, for nice. Isn't that much nicer?
I think that's better.
Yeah.
Oh well, what are you gonna do?
Buy it, folks. That's what you're
You
going
know
to
what, Davey? If Neil would have consulted with you, it would have been a hell of a lot easier.
do. Yeah, if Neil would listen to me, God.
Would be great. Wait
He
a
wouldn't have
minute.
married
Are
Daryl.
people coming over to get you right now, or
Oh,
should you
no,
hide? Should you hide?
Don't worry about them. Don't worry about them. They've not caught me yet, Grant.
Okay. Well, I don't want anything to happen, though it would make a great video. They came in and arrested you and pulled you out. I mean, I'm not trying to promote that, but I think it might be kind of entertaining.
That's the immigration services. I'm actually sitting in America right now. This is my great secret, I know.
Well, excellent. Well, anyway, everybody who's tuning in, this is the first episode of well, it used to be called Shitty Albums, but then I thought, well, crap, Grant. What should you really call it? Of course, the graphic still says that, but we're going with That's Total Shite. Or is it Shite? How do you pronounce it?
Well, we'd say Shite.
Okay, we'll go with the proper pronunciation, Shite, which is what I did on the promo. But this is Boston's I want to say 1976.
We wish.
But this is Boston's last album, Life, Love, and Hope from 2013. I shouldn't even have to give an intro to Boston, More Than a Feeling, 1976. Hell, that album probably sold more in 1 year than, I don't know. It was probably the number one best-selling of all time in 1976. Hell, I don't know. Until Thriller overtook it, or what is the number one best-selling album?
In America,
Eagles' Greatest Hits?
Greatest Hits, but in worldwide, I believe it is Thriller.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't have to give the Boston intro. But anyway, we're looking at the 2013, their final record. And to begin with, I'm going to turn it over to you to start this whole process since you're the guest.
Sure, thank you.
And I want to thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure.
Not at all. Not at all. I just wish we had something better to talk about.
Well, this is the whole thing. Anybody who's tuning into this, these records are crap records. These records probably should never have been made, but we just want to enlighten you just a bit. So to make sure you don't make that mistake and go out and buy them.
And part of the rationale for it is that we wanted to only do it for bands and artists who otherwise have achieved some level of greatness, because there's no point in picking on people that never made it and whatnot. So we might as well go for the successful types. So, Tom can take a few punches, can't he? So
I think he's made his money.
Yes.
But I don't think he's learned a hell of a lot since. But this, for anyone who's interested, this is an actual physical copy of it. This is the first one I've ever seen because I bought it for this. I have never seen this before in my life. I don't think anybody bought it. But here's a physical copy. This is like the Best Buy copy.
Oh, no, because that's got a bonus track, doesn't it?
It's got one bonus track. And I reviewed that too.
I can't imagine having to listen to more of that, because I did see that there was also an LP bonus track, a 1 minute version of "Oh Canada." You think, what was that, Canadian exclusive? No, just didn't have any more ideas than do a version of "Oh Canada." Oh, right. So
anyway,
it's on Frontiers Records.
That is a sign right there.
That tells you something straight away. Because Frontiers is, I believe, the label that's funded by that trust fund guy who has a lot of money, does not need to worry about if the albums really make a lot back. Obviously, it's still a business, but a lot of them are passion projects, signing legacy bands where he just liked them back in the day. So they've got some great releases, but also sometimes it's where good acts go to die. Let's be honest. Frontiers is where it's a retirement home for talent in a lot of cases, And in this case, I'm not even sure the talent's still there. So Frontiers kind of can ring alarm bells straight away. I found a lovely quote from Tom Scholz talking about the album, because as we know, Tom takes at least a decade between albums, and it's kind of funny that you mentioned that this is their last album. We should add to date, because he still says there could be another Boston album.
Let's
And
hope not.
you think, wow, if this was when you were just in your 60s, I can only imagine how out of touch you'd be in your 70s or 80s or something when you're trying to produce another Boston record, digging around the vaults to see if he's got any Brad Delp stuff left. And we'll come to that. I'll just go through it. I mean, there's this quote from Tom. I couldn't believe it when I read it, because you might hear this, folks. You might hear this quote from Tom and think, that's a nice philosophy. And then you'd think, oh, when you've heard the album, my God. He says he would only release it if it was up to the demands of Boston's harshest critic, me. Oh, I don't think Tom should have had a career in music journalism if that's the case, because he ain't much of a critic if he's the harshest critic and he thought this was acceptable. This would be unacceptable if it was an album of demos. Literally, because why would you be using demos for tracks that you've already released on your last album? Re-recordings? It's just bizarre. But we'll go into it. So I will do a track by track, although at one point I gave up and just wrote, why don't I just copy and paste? Because that's what he's doing.
Davey, I just want to say, by the time I got to the track Someone,
yes,
which I'm going to assume is about, I'm going to say that's well into side 2. I don't have anything written because it was just basically copy and paste.
Copy and paste.
It's all one.
It's a mush.
It's a mush.
It's a mashed potato of an album, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And even, I think Tom even did that with the titles, because how many titles have got love in it? Didn't mean to fall in love, life, love and hope, if you were in love, love got away, you gave up on love. That's 5 tracks.
I swear to God, I thought this was a Lionel Richie album.
If Lionel put that out and called it the love thing, you'd be like, oh, that's so saccharine, that's
right.
Oh, yeah. But this is a Boston record, and then 2 of the tracks that don't have that, they've got almost identical tracks anyway. Titles, you've got Someday and Someone. So, and then you've got Sail Away, which you just think it sticks. Heaven on Earth, you just think of, a million different, Belinda Carlisle's Heaven on Earth or something. There's nothing original even in the titles here.
Did you just mention Belinda Carlisle?
Yeah, I did indeed, yeah.
This is the first time I've ever heard her mentioned ever on one of these shows.
Brilliant. The Go-Go show coming soon, folks.
That's right.
It's a full series. We've just signed up for it. You mentioned somebody in this channel, that's you. The last track even has The Way You Look Tonight. I mean, how much more generic do you get than using a big old standard title like And the Way You Look Tonight? So even the titles on here are all copies of themselves, copies of other great songs, apart from The Last Day of School, but we'll go into them. Heaven on Earth is our opening track, and you get David Victor singing here. And when your first lyric, your first stanza has Boston, and you think, okay, right, I'm getting, sounds a bit slick, a bit overproduced, but okay, it's the 2010s, okay. And then he starts singing about leaving on a jet plane. What the? Why does Boston get a lyric like leaving on a jet plane? Why should they be evoking that?
They should be leaving on a friggin' spaceship. Yes, with guitar tuners on the top.
I'm leaving on a jet plane, because that's the kind of thing that you want to evoke when you're Boston. That great hard rock classic, Leaving on a Jet Plane. Fucking hell. David is and I'm going to get this out of the way because, again, I'd just be writing this over and over. David Victor is a karaoke singer. He is impossibly generic. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to see Michael Schenker play about 200 yards from our front door. And he has Ronnie Romero singing for him. Now, he's the definition now of a karaoke singer for me. But David makes Ronnie Romero sound like the most versatile singer of all time here. Whew, David is bland personified. There's nothing here. There's nothing on this record. We'll come to two other singers on this record, because there are 4 or 5 here, folks. Didn't Mean to Fall in Love is a remastered version from Corporate America. Corporate America being an album from 11 years beforehand. Now, first of all, why would you re-record? In fact, this isn't even a re-recording. It's the same recording that you just added to and remastered. Why would you do that from your last album that nobody liked anyway, that sold shit? And when your only change is to add drums, bad drums, and hand claps, because it's full of... Why would you be doing that? So did Tom listen to that album back in 2002, see the bad reviews and think, if only I had some hand claps, that would have sold like gangbusters? There's some nice acoustic playing on it, though. I'll give him that. Tom can still strum with the best of them. So he's playing some nice stuff there. Last Day of School is an instrumental. Now, we've already mentioned that you've got 3 re-recordings here. And then to add on an instrumental really starts to ring alarm bells. Tom didn't have any material for an album here. I know he's considered this great perfectionist. He had 11 years and still couldn't come up with material to fill an EP, never mind an album. Last Day of School starts with this really fast piano playing that sounds like it comes from a Jim Steinman Meatloaf record. It sounds like, and I will do anything for love. And
Davey, that's an excellent point. I kept thinking through this whole record, it sounded like a Meatloaf record.
Yeah, but
with worse sound.
Yeah, one of the later ones where they were just trying to redo their early stuff, like "Hang On Teddy Bear" or whatever. Hang On Teddy Bear, what's that about? And I'm sure we can possibly cover some Meatloaf, because I do love me some Loaf. This track apparently was first recorded on a huge pipe organ at Boston Symphony Hall for the 150th anniversary of MIT. That might have been interesting, but Tom doesn't do that here. He just plays the on a £25 Casio keyboard. And excuse me, $32 Casio keyboard from the Goodwill. And it just sounds like total crap. Total crap. It's an instrumental with absolutely no purpose whatsoever, apart from to remind you that we would never have had this on. Even Corporate America wouldn't have had this. Then we come to, and this is where I couldn't believe what I was reading when I checked out some other reviews, because I thought, normally on our other shows I don't check out reviews, but when we're doing bad albums, I want to see, are we out of touch, or is it the rest of the world? Some people said this was a decent record, and one of the ones that they cited as being a saving grace was Sail Away. Now, no. Now, the reason I say no is because, do you remember that song from the 90s? No, there's no limit. It's got the groove from that, this kind of 90s techno beat at the start, and you think, this is really weird. It's got a helicopter rotor going, and then Kimberly Dame, is that her name? I mean, it looks like it's pronounced Dame.
I think so.
She probably dropped the R and it's Kimberly Dahmer. She starts rapping.
Yeah, I heard that.
What the fuck? They're flying. They're styling. The president is flying. We're losing. Confusing. We're begging. They're refusing. And I read the lyrics and went, you're just rhyming. You're not actually rapping. I'm not sure that's the same thing. This is an embarrassment. But then it turns into a really quite nice Brad Delp track right in the middle. Because this is one of the things that Brad had been working on before is unfortunate. I'm not going to criticize Brad here because, he committed suicide in 2000.
Right.
And And frankly, he doesn't deserve criticism because he didn't sign off on this, being dead for 7 years beforehand. It's got some good rock stuff in it in the middle, but why Tom thought I should frame this with Kimberly rapping over it and these kind of techno beats, embarrassing.
It's horrible.
Absolutely embarrassing. And I just can't imagine that that's how it would ever have gone if he'd finished it with Brad. Tommy DiCarlo comes in to sing on the title track, and he's I think to this day, is still the touring frontman for the band. And that's kind of embarrassing too, because my rule is, if you want to keep my interest, never ever have your replacement singer just sound exactly like your old singer. And Tommy DiCarlo just sounds like...
It sounds just like him.
It sounds like cut price Brad, yeah, but with no personality. It's kind of offensive how much of a tribute act he is to Brad, but at least it sounds a bit Boston-y, I suppose. Tom on the title track does add some of the classic sound, and you think, is that good? Is that a good thing? Well, I suppose it is at this point, because at least I remember I'm listening to Boston after some...
Well, I think for those old fans, if you can kind of bring that in every now and then,
yeah,
it's good. Because there was a couple of tracks that I wrote down. If we're looking at "Didn't Mean to Fall in Love," even though that sounded very commercial, I swear to God, there was a Yamaha DX7 keyboard because it sounded like Chicago from 1988.
Yeah, exactly.
And the classical guitar, but that middle 8 part had that organ, like off the first album, and it had that old Boston tonality to it. Right then, for anybody who was into the band back in the day, they would go, "Oh yeah, here we go." But then that goes away really fast.
It does.
I mean, it's not there just for a blink of an eye. You get a taste.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. Is it doesn't even do it for a track. It doesn't even do it for half a track or a middle eight or a verse or a chorus. It tends to be for not even a guitar solo, but just a guitar fill or something. Just like one riff, because there are little parts of... And to be honest, it's more often than not just More Than a Feeling. He just starts to play little parts from that as if to go, remember me? It's really weird. You'd think, surely you can copy yourself better than this if that's your goal. If you were in love, Kimberly... I'm just going to call her Jeffrey Dahmer, actually. Kimberly Jeffrey Dahmer is...
You can just call her Jeffrey Dahmer. That's fine.
Well,
we'll understand who you're talking about.
Her name's Dame, but it's spelled Dahmer without an R at the end. So, honestly, I don't care if she's offended because she's absolutely abysmal. She sings on this track solo. Now, she's done the rap bit, but she was crap at it. So you'd think, well, maybe she can do some actual singing. No. Be careful what you wish for, because I always say when bands replace the front man or front woman, don't just go for the sound alike. Like I said with Brad there, go for something completely out of the box. Stop trying to replace John Anderson with other high-pitched singers. Try and think of something different. And one of my things is, why don't you try a female singer if you've lost your front man? Oh, I think Kimberly just calls me a liar here, because she's absolutely abysmal on this. She has got no range whatsoever. She's singing in this flat monotone voice. It sounds like Hillary Clinton constipated. What's it like? She's just got this flat, like no energy in her voice whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that's on Tom, because it's his job surely to say, okay, you can sing harmony or something, but you're not a front person. She just sings in this flat voice and sings in this really boring kind of half ballad, doesn't know if it's a rocker way. It's embarrassing to have anybody singing a Boston record with Brad Delp still on it that they're this bland and offensive as her and Tommy and Dave are on these tracks. It really is. She's got no range, and again, a voice flatter than a pancake in Belgium. Someday, there's actually a not bad power pop-ish like track in here. It's got a nice propelling guitar part. But then there's so many questions that you need to ask about why didn't you just record this completely straight and have that nice little power pop track? Because there's decisions on here. Why is there harmonica? I mean, the harmonica's mixed so badly that it might as well not be there anyway. And this goes for most of the album actually, why are the drums recorded using two of Oscar the Grouch's trash can lids? You know, I mean, that's the kind of drum sound.
I've got the answer to that.
Good.
I think you referred earlier to a Casio keyboard. I think it's the drums off a 1988 Casio keyboard, because the drums on here, even though on some of the tracks it lists like on Life, Love and Hope, it lists Tom Scholz as drums. Those are not real drums.
No.
He is using an old crappy drum machine. We're not even using a modern day era. Yeah. I mean, it's not even a Linn drum. It's like it's abysmal. Like you said, I don't even know what the hell it is. It has to be pre-Linn drum.
Yeah.
I mean, Prince would never use this shit. It would make him sick. I wish it was a Linn drum, and I wish Prince was around. We could get his ass in here to program the drums on this for him.
Yeah, and Prince wouldn't have even used that on some of the demo stuff from the Vaults and Paisley Park, never mind the release stuff. Offensive.
It's offensive.
It's offensive. It hurt my feelings, to be honest. The one decent sounding track that has actually got, and again, we're power pop people. We pure pop for now, people. We like that kind of upbeat, propellant sound. So there's that track's in here, but it's just buried in a cacophony of crap, a shower of shite. The guitar is lower in the mix than those bad drums. And there's a point where the drums just kind of meld with the guitar. No, that shouldn't happen. I mean, obviously, you're in a rhythm section, that can happen. Your drum and bass can tie so tightly together. But why is the drums matching the guitar? And, you know, it just sounds...
They just kind of blend together.
Yeah, just into this Tom mush, the mashed potato, the Tom potato. And we're coming to the point where I just stopped making full notes here, because the next track here is the first ever lead vocal from Tom. Love Got Away. And it's actually a decent little song.
You know, I didn't think Tom did such a bad job.
Yeah, Tom's not an abysmal vocalist.
No.
And it almost makes me think, I wonder if he heard Jeffrey Dahmer singing on this, Kimberly, and said, well, come on, even I can beat that. Because Love Got Away is not a bad little song. It would be filler on any album that Tom's got his name in. But actually, if you stuck Brad on that and kind of put some more effort in.
Are you sure Brad's not on it? I looked at the credits, and I swear to God I could hear Brad singing on the chorus. No. And he's not listed, but boy, does it sound like it.
It does, but again, I think Tom seems to have a hotline of 1-800 dial for your pre-delivered Brad sound-alikes. Because he's got like 3 different people on here that just sound like Brad, because Gary Pill's on here and he sounds like Brad too. But again, Tom's not abysmal, so I don't know why he's not. He could have sung If You Were in Love, and I'd have been happier than Kimberly, who completely took me out of the record. And believe me, I wasn't exactly in the first place. Someone, and they actually call it Someone 2.0, and You Gave Up on Love 2.0. Because they're admitting, or they're just re-recordings from previous albums, and you think that doesn't make it better when you call it 2.0, folks. Rearranged and re-recorded. The advantage of rearranging someone, at least, is Brad Delp's here, and Brad sounds, he's older on these tracks that he is on. He is on 3 or 4, right. But he still sounds great. He's got passion in his voice. Nothing on here is sounding like 70s Brad. But that's
fine. All the songs here are all shitty songs.
Yeah.
So it's hard, Brad doesn't have a lot to work with.
No, but he does have something to work with because he's Brad Delp, and he's at least got a range. So you can hear a passion in him, even if he's not being allowed by the songs to show it. You can hear that he's got little inflections and things, and we think, oh my goodness, there's a singer on this record, rather than the best guy at karaoke or the worst girl at karaoke in Kimberly's case. So someone and You Gave Up on Love, for some reason, are re-recorded. Kimberly does flute on You Gave Up on Love, which I'm all for because it stops her singing. Beth Cohen comes in to do harmony vocals here, probably because at this point Tom realised that Kimberly can't do harmony, and Tom does some backing vocals here. And then The Way You Look Tonight, again, it evokes the title of that great traditional standard that, is it Tony Bennett or something? This is a very different song. And Mr. DiCarlo has got, as I said, the most karaoke voice ever. He's just saying, look beyond the world, maybe hope will come back your way. I've heard a tree can grow out of the ashes of yesterday. It's the most generic. We're doing ABC Lexicon of Love in a couple of days, right?
Right.
In the 1980s, a few times I've looked at UK charts and US charts, for various people's birthdays or things. You can, what was top 10 the day you were born, that kind of thing. And in the 1980s, we had a lot of great artists in the UK, and then I'll maybe send them the US version as well. And it's full of these kind of awful singers, like not awful singers, but these kind of like Mark Cones, those kind of guys, John Waits.
Well, I like John Waite now.
I like the babies, but I don't mean young John Waite. I mean corporate John Waite. I'm talking about this kind of era.
Oh, no. Have you heard Temple Bar? That album's killer.
But you know what I mean. The Armani suited, the guys that came out of the 70s realized we need to put away the guitars and just start having keyboards and do power ballads, that kind of stuff. And that's exactly what this little closing track is here.
You're talking bad English. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, or bad Boston in this case. The Way You Look Tonight is just abysmal, with the most generic possible vocal lines, vocal harmonies, generic lyrics. Tom again pulls out the guitar for about 3 seconds to do More Than a Feeling. He's not even doing classic Tom sounds. He's literally just doing More Than a Feeling sounds. It is the most bizarre thing.
Go out on a bang.
Yeah, it's as if he wants to just remind you, remember More Than a Feeling, folks? Why didn't he just do an album of different versions of More Than a Feeling?
I don't know.
I think that would have been, that might have been a bit.
And have different artists sing it, and we could have like a rap version, and then maybe...
Yeah, but as long as Kimberly's not doing the rapping, as long as old Jeffrey...
we'll bring in Debbie Harry to do a rap on one.
Why not? Why not? So Kendrick Lamar from...
or Drake. We'll have Drake come
We'll have Drake. We'll have Kendrick from the classic band U2, because he's in U2. Yeah, that's an insider reference. If nobody watches the U2 channel, they won't get that, but on the U2 shows on Ryan's channel. But overall, I am so sorry, because I listened to this album, and then you tell me you've got a version that's got another track on top of it.
Yeah, it's
I can't...
Quiro Mira or something. I can't pronounce that. It's some foreign language.
It's in Spanish.
I don't speak Spanish. And with that, well, the only thing I wrote is that this song could have been any of the other songs on the track. Nothing special. It just all sounds the same. So, so they gave us a bonus track on the Best Buy CD. Makes no difference at all. It more of the same,
Right. The good news is, Te quiero mia. I don't think any of that translates as love, so I don't think it counts as having been.
I bet it does. I bet you one of those words is love.
Isn't that amor or amore? Te quiero mia.
I don't know. You're much better with Spanish than I am.
Oh no, I think it might be wrong. I think it might be. Oh no, Spanish to English, right?
It probably means why don't we do it in the road or something.
Like everybody's got something to hide except for me and Brad.
My monk, yeah. Probably.
Oh my goodness, it means I love you, Mia.
See, it does mean love.
So that is now 6 tracks that have, and apologies to any. I took high school and university level French, folks. So excusez-moi, s'il vous plaît. But that is now 6 tracks. So half the album
is about love.
Love. love. And the irony of that is that love is the most passionate feeling in the world, and this album has
no passion at all.
No passion whatsoever.
This is cold, sterile.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can give you some thoughts. I think you did a wonderful job. There's a couple of things I can add, though.
Please do.
We did bring up the Yamaha DX7, which I would put money on that's what he used. And I would put money on him using the Casio 1987 Casio keyboard with the drum machine. I freaking swear to God, I'd put money on it. I don't see Tom going out there and investing any money in anything. You saw the inside cover of this. He's using his old, he's not putting any money in anything. It's the same studio he used back in 1976. And I'm not faulting him for that, but I can guarantee you the guy's not doing anything to help the production.
Mm-hmm.
For one, yes, all the tracks sound the same. Two, if anybody's heard this, it sounds like all the tracks were put in a frying pan with oil and simmered on the stove. Everything's got this sizzle on the high end.
Grant, can I just point out that the way you're doing that with the frying pan, the camera's cutting off, so it literally just shows you going like that?
Well, it's kind of like that. That's kind of what Tom was doing during his production. You interpret it however you want.
That also is a good metaphor. So if that was in the frying pan, it might actually have some protein value, which this album doesn't.
Right. There you go. So what I'm trying to say is that the production now, back in the day when Boston got signed, he brought the tapes to Epic. Epic went, well, we'd like for you to go back and we need to book time in a real studio.
Yeah.
And he went, well, so they didn't do that because for some reason he captured lightning in a bottle. Yeah. He captured magic. He didn't need to re-record that stuff. What happened to him? Is his ears shot? This album sounds absolutely horrible. And this is just not mastering.
Yeah.
This is a horrible recording. Now, I tried to look and see what the mastering credits were on here, and there aren't any. I think this whole thing's just a Tom Scholz back project. I don't know. This might be Tom Scholz' label. I don't know. It sounds absolutely hideous. And the other thing is, of course, we're in 2013. We're totally in that era of the loudness wars where everything's got to have more the better. We're catering for those iPod people. We've got to have everything loud, no dynamic range. Well, this album totally has no dynamic range. And you mentioned this before when we were talking offline, how everything is mixed.
Yes, that's my big takeaway. I didn't notice this until I listened.
It's just all like this. Yeah. There's no...
If you looked at it on an equalizer and had all the instruments isolated, they would all just be mid-range. Everything on it is just exactly at the same level.
And it's all in the same mix. It's like a big mono.
Yeah.
I don't think it's mono, but my God, does it sound like mono?
It should be, shouldn't it? It
should
all
be the same.
It should be on not even a good mono LP. It should be on one of those Fisher Price toy mono things that you used to get.
Yeah, those little, yes.
Yeah, it's that kind of recording quality. I mean, you said you were looking to see who mixed it. I think Helen Keller's a pretty good shout.
I think, or it might have been Kirsty McCall. I think she might have mixed it. I'm not sure.
At least she would have some vocal ability and some talent to bring to it.
She sequenced this though, right?
Oh, I don't think you could have sequenced it any way that wouldn't make it an absolute embarrassment. And it was interesting to read the note there from being Bolt. That is yet another track, which thank goodness I haven't heard of, which is just a redux corporate America. Wow, how embarrassing that even your bonus track is another re-recording. So you've got another song that's just vaguely about love, and then another track that's just, oh God, we really don't have any more material. Here's something I never say. Tom, just add a couple of cover versions on, mate.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to sell much of this anyway, so the royalties aren't going to be a problem. It's not as if you play this kind of stuff live. You always just play the hits. So you're not going to offend anybody, apart from listeners. But do some covers. Tom's, half and half. Side one, some Boston originals with Brad. Side two, Tom's favorite tracks that influenced him, made him go into the basement in 1975, 76.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that. But this is the worst thing. Me listening to this is the worst thing that's happened to a British person in Boston since the Tea Party. And it's an absolute disgrace that someone who's considered this great do-it-yourself, can-do attitude, just leave me alone, just me, the studio, I can do absolutely everything. It's an embarrassment to think
It's an embarrassment.
The same guy. It doesn't take away from what he's done before. If anything, as you said, it just shows.
Well, yeah, it does. I don't think I'll ever be able to go back and listen to it the same way.
Yeah, because you know what's coming, I suppose. But the culmination of a career, this crap. But it just shows you the vim and vigor, the piss and vinegar of youth, and the bullshiness of. No, I don't. I'm not coming into CBS or wherever in New York. I'm not coming into the Hit Factory and recording. This is what I did in my basement. If you don't like it, piss off. This could have been recorded at generic studios in corporate land, and it would have made no difference whatsoever. And as you say, it doesn't even sound like a decent late 80s Boston record where it's just a bit dated sounding. These would have been lucky to be B-sides on Boston records. As it compared to the first Raspberry.
The first Raspberry is brilliant. The first Raspberries is a good record. Don't pay attention to any of those guys on that other show.
Tom is a humanitarian and does a lot of great charity work, which is more than I can say for Eric Carmen. So
right, but he's pushing it down your throat on this record and on the liner notes and everything.
Yeah. He's also been a vegetarian for about 40 years. Do you think that's got something to do with it? I think if he had some more red meat in his diet, there may be a bit more balls about this whole affair. He's not having the fiber and the vitamins that he's losing through red meat. He's not replacing those, because this sounds like warm milk of an album.
It sounds like warm milk.
It's just it's offensively bland. It's and I always say the worst thing you can do is be bland. At least if it's totally off the wall nuts, at least that's interesting. Someone we both talk about quite a bit in conversations, Alex Chilton.
Okay.
How does he start a solo career? Flies on Sherbet, one of the weirdest records ever made. It's a complete mess. It's scuzzy as hell. It's criticised from pillar to post, and it's absolutely fascinating because it's pure, unadulterated Alex Chilton. This is pure, unadulterated blandness. There's nothing in here that is. Tom doesn't believe in this. I'm not buying that for a second. This is him just saying, what does a Boston record sound like again? Oh, yeah. Like the last one, copy and paste.
And there's very little on here that, it does sound like Boston because of the guitar parts and Dead Brad Delp on some tracks.
Yeah.
But it's just the poor man's Boston album. There's no reason for anyone to even own it. There was no reason to even make it. The best thing about the whole thing is the album cover. The album cover is kind of cool. That's the only thing that's good about it is the album cover.
I'll give him that. At least he's always stuck to that guitar spaceship idea. I like that when a band sticks to an idea. But
Ernesto, do not listen to it. You won't be able to go back.
Ernesto, just imagine that they split up in I don't even want to say the late 80s. Let's imagine they split up in 1980. And you will think they're one of the classic bands.
Yes. Don't even listen to Corporate America. Please don't. Please, I beg of you.
And if you listen to this and Corporate America, you'll be listening to 4 of the same tracks anyway. So
right, it's the same thing.
Although you might listen to corporate America and say, I wish there was some rap on this. I wish there was a female vocalist who doesn't know how to rapping on this.
I do want to add, because you pretty much covered it, pretty much my thoughts. There is a couple of things on the title, on the track Someone 2.0, where Brad and Tom are singing together. You know what that totally reminded me of? And it made me chuckle because I could totally hear that this band would listen to this and go, well, that's, we could try something like that just as a joke. And I swear to God, it reminds me of Ghost, like the new Ghost record. It's like he listened to that and went, shit, that's just horrible. I wonder if we could do that. And I like the new Ghost record.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong.
The new Ghost record, Imperia in shops now is fantastic, folks. But yeah, they might stick this on when they've had a little.
Maybe they might have, but I kept thinking, God, it reminds me of Ghost.
I swear to God. Papa Emeritus Tom at this stage, I'm afraid. And frankly, Tom saying that, hey, I might still have one in me, I'd consider that a threat to national security at this point. I think he should have his instruments taken away from him. Or, here's an idea, Tom. Just do a Boston record, an actual Boston record if you really want to. Just, listen to those first 200 repeat and go, if that's what I want to do, because that's obviously what he thinks this is anyway, but it isn't. But he puts putting these guitar parts in, and you're right to call them parts because they're just seconds. They're not even half a minute long.
Right.
The whole point of this project eludes me. I do not understand it because it was not played live. It was not done for commercial reasons because at this point, no legacy band like Boston was going to sell big anyway. I can only imagine that Tom was so indulged for those first couple of records that he genuinely thinks that he can always just reproduce that, and he goes back into the basement and comes out with gold. And oh my goodness, what he came back with this time, ain't gold, folks, ain't gold. It's not even bronze.
What's the name of the third record? Because I kind of listened to Boston and Don't Look Back, and I could take all those tracks.
It's
third
stage. Yeah, third stage.
And that's where the cracks really started forming because I could listen to Don't Look Back and the first album, and they both have the same tonality. I could just put them in a blender, and they could just all fit together, and it wouldn't be jarring.
Yeah, if you released those two as Boston's greatest hits, fine.
They should have just packed it in there.
Yeah, but because what is this? 6 albums? That's all they've ever done, isn't it? 6? Because it takes so long.
I have no idea. I haven't paid attention to anything since Don't Look Back.
There's 3. There's Corporate America. There's this, and then there's one in the middle from that 10-year gap. So yeah, this is 6 albums, and by God, only 2 of them, and arguably really just one, completely capture the zeitgeist. Because the second album is really strong, but it is pretty much just the same album again.
It's the same album again, yeah.
As you say, Kirsty could resequence it, and you wouldn't really notice if you jumped. You wouldn't notice. The only kind of upside is that More Than a Feeling things were on that first one to really push it over the edge. And even then, I don't think it's the greatest album ever made, like some people do. I think it's a fantastic album, the Boston debut.
It is a product of its time. If you think 1976, it would fit right in there. Frampton Comes Alive.
Yeah, it's
the Boston album. Yeah, it's
a brilliant testimony to young genius, and that's what he was, and that's why this is so offensive, because the same genius, the muse has just gone completely, and he's still trying to do the exact same trick in 2013 that he was doing in 1976.
It's impossible to do.
And now that he's got $100 million in the bank, isn't recognizing that, hey, music's not the same as it was in 76. But he seems to think that adding a couple of verses of rap onto the album will make Boston contemporary. I have no idea why this album was made. It's not, they signed a new record deal for it, so it's not as if it was a contractual thing. I have no idea what
Well,
the
you know why it was made, because Frontier went to Tom, said,
yeah,
"Hey,"
yeah,
because they put, like you said, they put out a record. Anybody who's a legacy band,
yeah.
you'll be able to put out something with Frontier.
Mhm.
And they went to Tom and they said, "Hey, Tom, hey, we haven't had any. Can you put something together?" And they worked a
And,
deal. That's what happened. He
and to
didn't
bring
have.
it full
He
circle,
could give a shit probably. He just, all right. Well, okay. How
and
much money? Okay, I'll do it.
that's sad, isn't it, to think that
It's
somebody would because with a small catalog you can control your legacy so much
right.
easier than with a large, expansive one.
Mm-hmm.
Someone like Neil Young, who we mentioned, has got so many albums that it's so hard to, it's all over the place. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
Tom could have had this small, compact career, but just all hits, no misses.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, if you go see Boston live, you're only hearing the first two records anyway, pretty much.
And Amanda,
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
you're never going to hear anything from these records ever. In fact, half the band aren't even in the band anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the last quote I could find from Tom saying that he's doing another one is from 2018, where he says that he's now enjoying being on stage for the first time, and he considers it an honor to something like an honor to take these old classics and add new parts to them on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he's doing to those old classics what he's doing to some of the re-recordings of the shit on here,
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine what he's doing to some of Brad's old stuff. Yeah.
Poor Brad. So glad he's not here to see it.
And I didn't even read up on it because I understand there was a lot of controversy over Brad's inclusion here, and I didn't want that to come into it because I don't know the ins and outs, and
Mm.
especially with the suicide, I want to be a bit
Right. Yeah.
for
Right.
me being a bit sensitive, but it's great to hear Brad here. That's all I'll say. I don't know if it was crass to include him or not, if it was against the family's wishes. I don't know. But he is a very, very, very small speck of gold in a whole mud pile of, you're down by the river, down by the creek, and you're sifting for gold, and you find this little tiny nugget, and it's the spirit of Brad Delp. That's all there
That's
is in
it.
here. And the
Mm-hmm.
occasional little riff, the tiniest of little riffs that you think, oh, look, that's a Tom Schultz riff. That's
Mm-hmm.
all there is going from it. And an album cover that's pretty much just okay and something you would expect from the band anyway. There
Mm-hmm.
really is no reason for anybody to ever listen to this.
No.
And I guarantee you Brad hasn't. Tom hasn't. Brad definitely hasn't, but Tom certainly has never gone back to this album. So why should you?
Yeah. So you wouldn't give this. What would you rate this? What would you give it? What rating would you give this then? Is
You
there
know,
any redeeming value to it?
yes, there is. Because as I said, Sail Away is half a decent song. Um, but it's covered in that bizarre 90s techno. Um, the Brad stuff in the middle's okay. And then I like Someday with the kind of power pop tone, but the guitar's lower than a snake's belly.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know why that, so everything has always got a caveat. So even the pluses come with their own minuses.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to, you use a 5-star ranking on this, don't
I
you?
like 5-star rankings.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
you do. So I'm not gonna go 0 because I think Brad gives you something, and I do think that's actually a half decent song. That
Mm-hmm.
someday or yeah, someday someone is crap, but someday is okay. So I will go with. I want to say half a star, but that does seem too harsh.
That
I'm going to
seems a
go
little
with
harsh.
one. I'm going to go with 1 star, and that star's name is Brad.
I agree. I give it 1 star. Of course, I've listened to this album over and over again, and I swear to God, Davey, I can't tell you. There's no melody here that. There's nothing redeeming about it that sticks in your mind.
Yeah, is there
It's
anything
just
in
a
here?
bunch of filler just to get Frontier Records. I'm surprised Tom even went to this extent. But, he does have to hold up his legacy somewhat.
You'd
But
think at this he would have if he just needed product. You'd think especially if he says that he likes now what he's doing on stage with the old songs, you'd think he would say, why don't I give you the greatest hits re-recorded the way I'm doing them on stage now? And they would have said, oh yes, we can sell new versions of those classics. Oh yes. That seems like it would have been a better solution all round. Would still be completely pointless for us as listeners, but at least it would have been something. But no. Oh, now they're cleaning the streets out there.
Well, at least it's not the police.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anybody knocking on your door to come get you, so
That's fine.
I
The
guess
doors
we're
are
okay.
the doors are barricaded anyway. They'd never get past them.
Good. Well, there you go. I don't know if we can add that much more to it. I mean, it's a horrible record. 1 star. We both give our ranking of 1 star apiece. There's no reason to even visit this. And if you do visit it, it's going to taint your whole view of Boston in those first 2 albums. So I would stay away from it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have anything more to add other than the only one thing I do want to add before we get off of here is that when you listen to it, everything is so loud and crispy sounding that by the time you get into about half of side 2, if there was a side 2, you have listening fatigue so badly that you just want to turn it off.
Yeah.
Because it's not a pleasant listen. It's harsh, cold, and like we said, it's totally maximized, but the EQ on it is so odd.
Yeah.
And
that's the weird thing, isn't it? That there's reasons to hate it from a musical point of view, a lyrical point of view, a musical point of view. But from a production, recording, engineering, there's completely separate different reasons.
It might be even worse in that area, because maybe there might be some decent songs in here if you could get to them with the proper production. That's really going out on a limb.
Yeah, maybe an EP.
Maybe an EP. Maybe you can get 4 tracks out of here with decent production. You might be all right.
You may need a couple of live ones to stuff it, but yeah.
But the only thing I would recommend on this is if you want to hear an album that sounds absolutely hideous, this is your record. Yeah. Sound-wise, production-wise.
And to Tommy DeCastro and Kimberly Jeffrey Dahmer, I'm sorry. I don't dislike you as people. I'm sure you're perfectly nice because Tom's apparently a lovely guy with a lot of charitable causes and things. But I'm sorry, your music's bad and you should feel bad.
There you go.
But I love you.
We love them. They're great.
Kimberly. I don't love Jeffrey Dahmer though. Not the actual Jeffrey Dahmer.
No, he was an overrated human. So there you go. I guess we've pretty much summed it up. 1 star piece. Avoid it if you can.
Yeah, and I was being generous. I was really considering 0.5.
And I don't know what album we're going to touch on next, but I would stay tuned for more entertainment.
I would like to say The Only Way Is Up, but
I don't know.
It can't be down much further. It can't.
Oh yeah, you can get worse albums than this.
Oh, I don't know. From just such a corporate shill point of view with no soul. I mean, More Than a Feeling. There's no feelings on here whatsoever. Nothing on here has ever involved a human emotion.
It's very robotic and cold.
You know the U2 series. I'm sitting there every week going, "Oh, I'm so emotional. It hits me here." The only way this album could hit me is if the postman flung a copy at me. It's just an embarrassment to music. It's the worst thing. But I'm sure folks tune in next month and we'll try and find something worse for you.
That's our goal, to scrape the bottom of the barrel. This is pretty damn close, but
yeah, we listen to it so you don't have to.
That's right. Yeah. But it's true. I can never listen to. If I hear the classic first album again, this is going to pop into my head. This album will pop into my head. And it will just tarnish it.
The sad thing is, though, only the memory of listening to it will pop in because none of the songs will. Because they're so... I can't remember any of it. I had to literally take notes going, this is a bit power poppy. This is the one that sounds like... Because none of the melodies are here. None of them have got any parts where you can whistle or 2 minutes later. Does it pass the old grey whistle test? No, it does not.
Well, I was taking notes and I thought I was keeping track. but it would change songs, and for some reason I didn't pick up on it because it all sounded bland and the same. And then I'm going, wait a minute. I had to look the liner notes going, wait a minute. What?
Yeah. And how telling that you said that you have fatigue halfway through, or not even halfway through, just onto side 2, or the equivalent of. This album is about 40 minutes because it is a single LP, and it's still
38 minutes long.
It sounds like one of those records where, in the 90s especially, with the CD era, where people seem to think that because you now had 77 minutes, you should have 77 minutes of music, and they did not have 77 minutes of material. But this is 40 minutes.
And it felt like 77 minutes.
It felt like 77 minutes.
Yeah. Well, there you go, kids.
If you find it in a dollar store, folks, you paid $2 too much.
Right. You'll never see it. Like I said, I've never seen it before. Yeah. It wasn't me prepping for this show.
But Tom's so loaded, he probably bought every copy just to, put in a landfill.
But I'll tell you, I'm going to keep this CD just as a reminder.
Yeah.
Because I could never get rid of it. It is so bad.
Yeah.
You have to keep it. You
need a barometer. You're right.
Right.
You should, whenever you think, oh, that's not a very good record, stick that on and then go, actually, at least it makes me feel something.
Exactly.
That makes you feel nothing whatsoever apart from sheer contempt. And you want to cut out your own nostalgia for Tom and Brad and whatnot. And that's really bad because Brad had nothing to do with it. And I don't like that he's been dragged into affairs after he's dead. But
well, it is what it is.
It is. And unfortunately, it's 10 years on and time has not been kind.
No, it hasn't helped it at all. Yeah, right. Or not. Keep it for future reference is a bad album.
Yeah.
All right, kids. Well, I want to thank Davy Gallagher for coming on tonight, and we'll be doing an ongoing series.
Yeah.
So please leave comments. I mean, if you have heard this record, please leave a comment on your thoughts about it, because it just would. I just could hurt. I have to hear someone else's thoughts on it. Oh my God.
Should we do? What's the worst ever Doors album? Do you think was?
We could, but if you had Todd Evans on here, it's hard to tell which one's the worst, because the worst is his favorite.
Yeah. So, no. None of these will be featured in this series. Maybe a couple of the reunion ones. Who knows?
I was looking over on the Contrarians YouTube comments, and a lot of people were leaving comments and wanted to know why we didn't go with, other voices and the last 2 records. Well, we were just sticking with the Morrison stuff.
Yeah, because that's too easy.
That's too easy.
Yeah.
But a lot of people like those records. I said, well, it sounds like a part 2 to me.
What was it? Who was that? Mr. Robbie User 101, and nobody likes those records. That's nonsense. They must be on crack.
Could be crack.
Unless you're one of my subscribers, in which case
they probably are. They're on crack.
Yes. First of all, you're definitely on crack. And second of all, thank you.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to say goodnight. And thanks for everybody for tuning in. Thanks everybody to come in and get in there and leave a comment. And yeah, if you've heard this record, please comment on it, because it's just... It will change your life. I guarantee you that. It will.
Everything will sound better afterwards. The birds in the tree will never sing a sweeter melody after you hear the lack of melody on this. The worst singer you've ever heard in the world will sound better once you've heard Kimberly Jeffrey Dahmer. Trust me, everything is going to be sweeter than sugar cut fresh in the cane once you listen to this album by Boston.
That's right. So there you go. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you again. Davey, stay on after I hit the end. You know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.